Knows Best.
Hi, friends, and welcome back to Brenna Knows Best. I'm your host, Brenna Berg. Hi, how are you guys? Happy Monday. If you are watching on video, I have a Celsius in my hand, or not a Celsius, an Alani Nu, you guys, and a cherry slush. And I just want to take a sip for everybody. I tried. Oh my gosh. I tried to get it so you could hear it, but that didn't really work. I'm finally enjoying the cherry slushes. And now there are only about 4 left because that's all we have. But you would not believe my excitement when I landed. Okay, wait, let me back up. I was going to say when I landed on Monday, I got in around like 8:30, I think. And when I got home, I was exhausted. And there were the cherry slush Alani Nus in the fridge. I was like, I was so excited because not only that, when I'm home, obviously my family doesn't drink energy drinks and I don't go out and buy them because it's just not part of the priorities. And everybody drinks coffee day in and day out. Pots and pots and pots of coffee. Well, LaDonna. Okay. I shouldn't say everybody. LaDonna. Like constantly, you guys. But let me back up. Let's go back to the start. I left you guys last week and I had one story before I talk about North Dakota. I went on a walk on Thursday morning and my flight was Thursday night, I believe. And I was on the Katy Trail and I was walking and I didn't have my headphones in and I heard some like footsteps behind me, like somebody kind of like running or walking, but right behind me for a while. And slowly but surely, there was this older gentleman who was running past me, but obviously he was going like pretty slow. And he was like, good morning, you know, kind of just like making himself known. And I was like, morning. And he passed me. Well, shortly up ahead, you know, I watch him and you guys know I love old people. Like there is something about old people that just, I want to say that it's a disproportionate amount of joy. Like, I don't know if other people feel this way because with the nanny fam, you guys, the kids used to always make fun of me. Like whenever there would be old people around, they're like, oh, here Brenna goes. She's going to say something to these old people. I don't know what it is. Or one time when we were in the Hamptons, there was like this get together at a park and it was all old people. And I literally was crying. I was like, this is the most precious thing I've ever seen. And they were like, Brenna, what the fuck is wrong with you? I don't know. I don't know if it's because of my bond with LaDonna and Gordie. I don't know if I just like love them. I don't know what the thing is. But this sweet old man passes me and I'm like, oh my gosh, obsessed. Number 2, he's running. Like he's probably, you guys, in his 70s, if I had to guess. Maybe late 60s, but I would probably say 70s. Like he was an old man and he was running. Obviously not very fast, but like that's incredible. Like that is who I aspire to be. And anyways, he passes me and then up ahead, he starts walking. And so I walk pretty fast. So I'm about to pass him, right? So I come up on him like a couple minutes later and I wanted to acknowledge his presence because he acknowledged mine, you know, like he passed me and said, good morning. So like, I didn't want to pass him and like be a bitch and not say anything. So I said, how are you? You know, I was kind of walking past and I was like, how's it going? Like, how's your day going? And he kind of said good, but it was like a longer version. He was like, good, just like enjoying the weather. So I was like, I know, this is beautiful, right? Because on Thursday morning, it was so nice. And he responded and he was like, I saw that it was going to be 90 degrees and I knew I had to get out early because it was probably like 7:30 or something. And then I slow down. So I'm next to him because we're like in a full-fledged conversation. And he had a running t-shirt on, like a 5K or something. And I'm like, have you ever ran a half marathon? Like just knowing that this man is 70 and he's running probably. And he was like, yep, I've ran about 18, but I never quite qualified for the Boston. I'm like, oh my gosh, like running a marathon under 3 hours, like that is not an easy feat. And he was like, I got down to like 3 hours and 20 minutes. So we're in this conversation and I'm obviously like overjoyed. I'm like, I live for this shit. Number 1, like an old person. And number 2, just like a wholesome conversation, you know? And he was just so precious and he's walking and we started talking about, I don't even know what, and there wasn't much of my walk left. So on the Katy Trail, if you're not familiar, obviously, if you don't live in Dallas, you would have no idea. It's like honestly, I think it's a 5K in length. So it's about 3.5 miles long. So obviously I only walk like stretches of this, but there are certain entrance points. Like there are some that's just like an opening onto a street, and then some are stairs that hop off to like different roads and things along the whole entire path. So like you kind of have an entrance, like there's a spot that I typically always enter and exit, just that's closest to where I live. And so it's coming up. So there's only a little bit, it would have been a little different if I was like starting my walk. I'm like, oh, am I going to be stuck talking to this guy for forever? Not stuck, because I would have. You guys, I would have talked to him for the rest of the day. However, I knew my entrance was coming up, or my exit. And so we're just chit-chatting. And then we get up to the stairs where I get off. And he was like, I'll have to tell you next time about the Santa Claus that I ran with, or the Santa Claus that saved me on my marathon. And I was like, well, now I have to know. So we stopped and we were talking just in the middle of the trail. And he was telling me how one time he ran this marathon, and he was probably at like what is a marathon? 26.2. I think he was at like mile 20. Somewhere in there, like the very end. And there was this man. Apparently you can look him up. I think maybe his name was Larry. Oh, I didn't even look him up, and now I feel bad. I need to do that in case I run into him again. But he's like known for running marathons dressed as Santa Claus. And Mark, this guy's name is Mark. Maybe I shouldn't like give out his identity, but he said he was running and he came across him, and the Santa Claus guy was like, you're going to need this. And in his pockets, he had Jolly Ranchers. And then in the other one, he had like candy bars, which if you don't run or know anything about it, like you're like, what? That sounds kind of crazy. But when you run, obviously, the like goo gel, or what do you call that? Like the little gel packets. Why did I call it goo? I don't know. The gel packets, because you need energy. Obviously running 26 miles to give yourself, like, salt is good too, because obviously you lose it all. Like, have you ever seen a runner after a race and the salt is all over their skin? They like sweat it out. Isn't that so freaky? Anywho, the Santa Claus reached over and Mark said he grabbed one Jolly Rancher, and the guy was like, no, you're going to need more than that. So he said he grabbed some more and he plucked them in his mouth, this little sugary little Jolly Rancher, and he said it honestly helped him. He said the sugar rush kicked in and it helped him finish the last however many miles. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, well, my name is Brenna. Like, so nice to meet you. I'm sure I'll see you. I'm always on the trail. And he's like, I'm Mark. Nice to meet you. And then he kept on. And he must do intervals. Well, he said he did. He was like, yep, my little marker's coming up. I think he runs like every 0.25, like a fourth of a mile, and then he walks the others. I love him. And I went on a walk yesterday when I got back, and I was looking for him because I wanted to say hi, but I didn't see him. There's also another man. If you walk on the kiddie trail, you have to know him. He's an older gentleman. He's probably like maybe 60s. And he walks his doodle, and he always has on a shirt. He wrote like a children's book or something. His name is Ron, and it says it literally on his shirt. But he says hi to everybody. Morning, hi. And once you meet him, like one time I ended up talking to him for like 30 minutes about his book and all of these things. And there are some old people that like this guy that like seek out conversation. It's like, oh, this guy, like sometimes I'm not in the mood to talk, but this guy Mark was just like so pure. And honestly, I kind of seeked out the conversation. I was like, I didn't mean to like take up your time. And he was like, no, it's so great to talk to you. Nice to meet you. He was fresh. Okay. Anywho, that is my story. Now, Thursday night, sweet Carter surprised me. He came home in the middle of the day. I almost said he barked. He knocked on the door and Maydog starts freaking out. It was like noon and he was like, I just decided to come home and work from home the rest of the day, and then that way I could take you, because I had to head to the airport at like 5:30 or something, and we weren't sure if he was going to make it. I was just planning to Uber. So he drops me off and I fly into Bismarck, and my sweet father, I texted him that morning. I'm like, Dad, are you picking me up? Because he texted him to ask him if I could sleep at their house, because I always do, but obviously I like to ask and not, just assume. And then that just kind of like means that he's going to pick me up. And especially at 10 p.m., I wasn't going to ask LaDonna and Gordie to come get me. So I texted him earlier that day and I was like, Dad, I fly in at 10:05. Like, are you able to get me? He's like, yep, tonight's a bowling night, but that's no problem. We get done at 9:30. I obviously know the bowling schedule. I lived that life for like 20 years. And so I texted him and he was already on his way. He picked me up. I sat and chatted with him and his girlfriend until midnight. These people stay up till midnight. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, go to bed. So I was exhausted. I woke up the next day and I obviously wanted to get to LaDonna and Gordie's early. And I also hate taking my dad's vehicles Number one, he used to have more working cars, but now he doesn't. So Pam has a car and he has a Tahoe. And I was like, Dad, why don't you just drop me off? Because the car is just going to sit there. I am literally just using whatever car you give me to drive to LaDonna and Gordie. So just drop me off. And he leaves for work at like 6:20 or something. So I went to bed at midnight and I got up at like 5:45 and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just not used to, I'm used to getting up at 5:45, but not being up until midnight. So the first day was a little bit tiring. However, he dropped me off at LaDonna and Gordie's at 6:30 and I walk in the door and it was so good to see them. Oh my gosh, you guys. But the house was chaos. And let me give you the lay of the land. You walk into their house and you walk into the kitchen and everything's closed off. It's an older home. It's not like an open concept. So you walk in, the kitchen is to the right. And then the stairs are immediately like you walk in the door, there's a landing and then the stairs to the basement. And so I can see down into the basement and there's shit everywhere down there. But anyways, upstairs, there's a living room and then there's the doorway that leads into the living room. Okay, did I just say living room twice? The kitchen is when you walk in. Okay, then there's a doorway to the living room. And then there's a hallway right there. And there is the bathroom and then 3 bedrooms. Okay, the primary, which is just a bedroom. Like it's not like a master or anything, obviously. And then 2 bedrooms. One's a guest bedroom and one is like LaDonna's craft room because she sews, you guys. She cross stitches. She does all of these things. She does Dippin' Dots. Not Dippin' Dots, Diamond Dots. You have to know. If you know an old person, you know what I'm talking about. It's like basically a picture, almost like paint by numbers, but then they have these little things where you do these little dots. They're like these little beads almost, and you put them in position. They must have sticky backs or something, or you put glue down. I don't really know. She does that. Obviously, she reads all the things. Then down the stairs, you guys, there's a huge open living room. When you get down there, there's 2 bedrooms on the right. And this is all storage. Like nobody goes down into the basement other than to go to the freezers or there's a fridge down there to grab drinks. Like this has just been used to hold shit forever. Obviously, back in the day, I'm trying to think, my dad was graduating high school. Yeah, they bought the house in 88. And I want to say LaDonna and Gordie got married maybe that year. I'm honestly not really sure. Maybe a few years prior. I should probably know that. However, my dad was in high school. He was a senior that year when they bought the house or had just graduated. But I'm pretty sure my dad is the oldest of the 4 boys. So Gordie has 2 boys, my dad and my uncle. And then LaDonna has 2 boys, also my uncles, obviously, but like they're not blood. You know, they came into the marriage. LaDonna and Gordie never had kids together because they met in their 40s. Met? Maybe not the right word, but got married in their 40s. LaDonna was late 30s. Anywho, I'm giving you the whole family tree. So at the time, there was obviously 4 sons. So this, you know, having the bedroom, 2 upstairs and 3. I'm assuming the downstairs, I guess, were the boys' rooms, which I never even knew that. And you guys, going home and learning about like the family and things when I was a kid that I didn't know, fucking tea. Nothing that crazy, but it's just like when I was a kid, I knew of everything, but you have no idea what's going on. And now putting the pieces together, like I didn't really know ever how old everybody was when LaDonna and Gordie got married. I guess I just like never really thought that deeply about it, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like you were combining like these high school, middle school age kids. Like I didn't realize they are really like brothers. Like to me as a kid, I'm like, oh, those are LaDonna's kids. Like they were still very much my uncles, but I never thought about the dynamics amongst the boys. You know, you only ever think about yourself and your relation to them. Sorry, I'm getting a little woo-woo. But anyways, down the stairs, there's 2 bedrooms to the right. And there's also like this little area that then goes into underneath the stairs that is used for storage, like the Christmas decorations, places to shove shit, you know? And then on the left, there's another bedroom. Okay, so there's 3 bedrooms. And then there's a room the size of a bedroom that has 2 freezers a fridge, the washer and dryer. There's like a cupboard area with like some cabinets. And then around the corner, there's like a stand-up shower and a toilet, and then a place where they hold like their cleaning supplies, which we never used that bathroom as a kid. Like it's really like old, unfinished. It's kind of like a weird room, but that's where if you need a drink, you go down the fridge. That's where like all the drinks were held. And this is where the laundry room is. So anywho, the downstairs has basically just been storage, but it's 3 bedrooms, you guys, full of shit, of boxes, of books, of puzzles. So obviously I get there and LaDonna's just trying to go through everything. And you guys know Gordie broke his hip not that long ago. So he cannot even go down the stairs. He literally can't walk down the stairs. He really can't do anything. Like he can't even bend down. So it's like, oh my gosh, LaDonna's been doing everything. Like I knew that, but until I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, LaDonna, are you okay? Like mentally, physically, she's doing everything. You guys, LaDonna is like 5 feet tall and like 100 pounds. She's tiny. So she's like lifting things, the boxes. I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's younger. LaDonna is turning 73. Actually, when this comes out this week, or maybe the following Monday. Her birthday is the 20th and she'll be 73. So she's not old, but she's 73. Okay. Gordie turns 80 in November, but besides that, I get there. We obviously catch up. We have coffee. And then the first thing that I do is I go into this room downstairs and there is probably, oh, you guys saw on my Instagram story, like at least maybe 50 puzzles. Okay. And they had already gone through some. My aunt Heidi had gone through and she works at a nursing home. So she took some to the nursing home so they can go through them. And LaDonna is big on donating. Like if it is in decent shape, she's like, I want to donate so like other people can use the things that we are no longer using. Like instead of throwing it, which I love. So the puzzles are Gordie's. Like LaDonna doesn't really dig the puzzles. She'll help out if they're sitting there, but it's like not her thing. You know, she likes to sew. She likes to do all of that. So she's like, we need to get these puzzles upstairs so Gordie can go through them, decide which ones he wants to keep. He likes the ones with trucks and cars and maybe dog ones, but he can't get down here. So I carried all of those up. If you saw my Instagram story, they were all stacked there because I had carried them up. Again, just like little things like that LaDonna could do, but just to help, help her make it go faster. I don't know. Because LaDonna has to go through all of the shit. Like I wasn't going to go in there and start throwing things away because another thing that, should I be saying this? I don't know. It's just a fact. I mean, it's nothing that crazy. Well, it is crazy, but LaDonna had 3 sons and one of her sons, my Uncle Trav, trigger warning, what's the best way I can say this, took his life. Okay. So LaDonna had Trav, who in 2002, I believe. So I was only 5. I barely remember him, but obviously I've seen pictures. And he was like, I want to say maybe 30 at the time or late 20s. And obviously LaDonna as the mom, like I can't even imagine. I don't remember that time as a kid, but I always knew growing up, like in July, I think is when it happened, that she obviously like had a really hard time. So there is a ton of stuff downstairs that was Trav's. And obviously like, I'm not going to tell her to throw that stuff away. And it's so many random things. Like there was a plant downstairs, like a huge, like tall decorative plant. It was Trav's and she is getting rid of it. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff that she was getting rid of. And so that's hard. So I'm not going to go in and like start throwing away things that could be his that are special to her, obviously. So she needs to go through the things. So I'm like, what are the things that I can help carry, lift? So I brought all these puzzles up. So Gordie slowly went through them, decided the ones he wants to keep, and then we donated the rest or got rid of some of them somehow. The neighbor came and grabbed some. Robin, my aunt, came and grabbed some. And then I pulled out all of LaDonna's books, you guys. They were in one of the bedrooms. I just pulled them to the living room and we basically spent all 3 days slowly but surely deciding what she wants to donate, what she wants to keep, because she was transferring like 3 of her bookcases and she wanted to keep some of them, She kept going back and forth. She's like, am I really going to read these again? But it's like more than that, having books. Like I love having the books. It's just like such a calming, great, I don't know. I love it. But we went through them, donated a ton of books, brought some of the books to the house, and like slowly but surely went through things. And obviously she's like, Brenna, anything that you want, anything you think that your brother would want. And I'm like, oh, it's so hard. Because number one, I only brought a backpack. So I didn't want to really like bring more than that home. Of course, if something was super special, which if you watched on my Instagram story, I went through the stuff yesterday. And if you didn't, sorry to everybody who already heard, I did bring home 2 stockings, one that LaDonna cross stitch, which is beautiful. And I'm so glad I have that and that she made it. I'm going to hold on to that forever. That is so special. One she bought, but it's for dogs. It says woof woof on it. And then you can put a picture of the dog. It's a stocking that I can use for Maydog. Love that. And I remember when they used it, obviously. I brought home one of LaDonna's red jackets. Red is also her favorite color. So that is so special. And it says LaDonna on it. I have another jacket that I stole from my dad's house that's purple and like super vintagey or like retro looking that says Gordie Berg. And I think it says Barrettburg on it. So I love that. Another racing one. And then I brought home a photo of us, a tiny little vase, like a really tiny one. They use it for toothpicks. Some of you said to use like tiny little flowers. I'm not sure what I'm going to use it for, but I have that because she had a ton of like crystal dishware that most of it she obviously took to the new house because she uses it during holidays and stuff. And then a few other odds and ends things. Oh, a puzzle, the pooping puppies puzzle that I think I'm going to do and then hodgepodge it so it sticks and then put it in a frame and put it in the bathroom. I love that idea. And like knowing that it's from them, I just love that. But anyways, the other days we went through and did some of their dishware, like all of her holiday dishware, we packaged up, took it over to the new house. And you guys, the new house is amazing. I mean, it's brand new. It's 1,700 square feet, so it's really not that big. I mean, it's 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The living room is not that big, so they're going to need to get new furniture. They need to get a new bed, but we set that all up. I went with them to 2 Vets Moving, so they have that happening. By the time this episode's out, it's already said and done. But tomorrow, Thursday, and they're basically just moving the big furniture that they wanted to move, like a seat, the bookshelves, one of the bedroom sets, some stuff from downstairs. There's like cupboard. Anywho, you guys, I'm so sorry. You probably don't give a fuck at all. But the new house is amazing. And you guys, they love it. Like, we would go over there and oh my gosh, they just crack me up. And honestly, LaDonna didn't cry at all. Like, I thought she would be crying, like going through like all of the stuff and the memories, but she was like on a fucking mission. And anywho, okay, back to the story. We would go to the house and they both would just like linger. Like, they love it so much and they never wanted to leave. So like one time I went individually with Gordie and he's walking with a cane now. So that's really great. But again, he would drive. Oh, and he can drive. So he's finally able to drive and it's like something that he can contribute. So he would love to like drive me over to the house so I could unload the boxes. We would leave LaDonna, or one time we went up to the Dakota Boys and Girls Ranch, which is a thrift store, and we dropped off boxes of donations. So he would drive and it's just his way of contributing. So it was amazing. So I think he felt good about that. But we would walk into the house and then we would have the same conversations and we would talk about this and talk about that. And he would just stand there. And I was like, okay, let's get back to the house. Like, I want to help LaDonna, but it was also like special. And I know that he's just so excited. So I would let him like talk and I don't know, just like be excited for it. It was precious. And LaDonna would do the same thing. Like, we would just sit there in the kitchen because they have bar stools now and then they have a dining table. So we would just pull out a bar stool and sit there and kind of like look around. It's empty. Like, that's the only thing in there thus far. But that was fresh. And then, okay, so the first day did that. Woke up the next day and it was Saturday. And I go over there and LaDonna gives me like the biggest hug. And she's like, Brenna, last night was the first night that I've slept. She's like, I've been so anxious. And the day that I got there, you guys, I texted her when my dad was dropping me off. And I was like, Grams, are you up? And she's like, I've been up since 2:30. Like, she's just been getting no sleep because she's so anxious and thinking about everything. And she's doing everything. And I'm like, oh my God, Grams. Well, number one, that makes me so sad. But number two, I'm so happy. And she's like, Brenna, you helped. And honestly, you guys, like, I feel like physically I did nothing because it was so hard and like such a process just to get through the things, which I understand. But honestly, like when I helped my friends Natalie and Ryan move, everything was boxed up. So it was just like lifting, carrying, and I was like, go, 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 go. Like we got so much shit done. Whereas this, it was like, really, I only took like maybe 6 boxes over and then brought the puzzles up. And it just felt like I didn't do that much. But she's like, no, Brennan, you've helped me be so logical. And you're like, okay, and here's what I told them. I'm like, well, not Gordie as much, but I'm like, Grams, do we like this thing or do we make this thing special because it's been sitting here for 30 years? You're like, well, I've had this for 40 years. That doesn't really mean anything when it's been sitting down in your basement. Or is it like an actually special item to you? And it was helping her make that decision, to toss, to donate, whatever. And I'm like, Grams, like, no, you're doing great. I was like always reassuring her because she would get overwhelmed. I'm like, no, it's amazing. Like, again, there's no rush. Like they have the key to the house. They're not in a financial position where they need to sell this house that they're currently in or the old house right this second. So it's like, as long as we can box up, get things over there, you'll get the furniture, you can start sleeping there and slowly start just like unboxing. Like nothing needs to be done. Winter's about to come and they're going to be stuck in their fucking house. Like have all of these boxes in the garage and you can just day by day open up a box, put things away, take your time. Because also we don't want to open it and put things away when we're not really sure where things are going to go yet. So, she's just so proud. And so obviously she said thank you. And then that day we went through some more things. We made it to the Dakota Boys and Girls Ranch, dropped off a ton of things, me and Gordie. And then we went to dinner with my dad and Pam that night. Since I was in town and it was a Saturday, we went to dinner. That was great. And then we wake up on Sunday morning and I come upstairs. You guys, I am not shitting you. The Vikings played at 8 a.m. because it was in London. And my father is having a really hard time understanding streaming services. Not even understanding it, that's a part of it, but like paying for it because there's so many different things. All my dad wants to watch is sports. Like all he wants to watch are the Vikings, the Timberwolves, and the Wild. But you guys, like NFL TV is like $100. And then this is like 50. I get it. It's fucking expensive. And he doesn't want to pay for that just for like the one game a week. I'm totally there. But I come upstairs and he pulls up a YouTube video. And what is on the TV is the Vikings game. It's a radio announcer, but the screen itself is like just the online stats, like words. It's like Vikings versus the Jets. And then it's reading out the plays. I'm like, oh my God, we're not even watching anything close to the game. We're watching like words on a screen and like a faux sort of football field with a football, and it would kind of show the yardage. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Are we really watching like the stats? And it was playing the radio, so we were like hearing what was happening. If any of you know or like are sports people or your families were, like whenever we would be on the road, we're listening to NASCAR on the radio or we're listening to the football game. And I'm like, oh my God. It just brought back my whole childhood. And also Pam told me that he can't watch NASCAR because they don't get that channel. So he pulls it up on whatever platform he can find. But there's always a box in the middle, probably saying like you need to pay for something. So my dad watches the NASCAR race with a box in the middle of the screen covering the whole thing. So he's really just watching the outline, and he does it every Sunday. I hope that when you hear this story, it makes sense why I am the way I am, why I'm so easygoing, why I'm so fucking frugal, why just like I am exactly the way I am, because that man raised me. I'm like, what are you talking about? You watch the NASCAR race basically covered, a huge box in the middle. And he said, well, one time the box was transparent so I could kind of see through. I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, Barrett, have you lost your fucking mind? I can't take it. You guys, my family, They are one of a kind. That is for sure. Oh my gosh, you guys, another thing. So before we started watching the football game on YouTube, the stats, I was like, let me see if I can get Fubo TV the week trial. But you guys, I've used every motherfucking email ever. So I'm like, Dad, give me your email. I'll put in my credit card info and I'll make sure to cancel it after. Well, I'm guessing what happened is everybody and their moms was doing this, because when I put in the credit card information, and I used both of them, it kept saying declined, or like wasn't working. There was like this error. My dad tried to do it, error. So I'm guessing they were just stopping people from doing this because it was Saturday morning and the game was in London and everybody was probably doing the same exact thing that we were. Well, you guys, my dad is sitting next to me with his iPad. And again, like, oh my gosh, he's just so not with the times. But my dad has quite literally never put his credit card information into an online thing. He is so scared of that. My dad is the guy who's carrying around tons of cash, not tons of cash, but like he always has cash. He never ever uses a card. Okay, it's check or it's cash. So it took him a while to even like put in his credit card information in the first place. But you guys, I'm sitting next to him. And so his iPad's here. We're on the Fubo TV. You know, you have to put in your information. And you guys, my dad, like even when he was doing that, he's like reading everything. So it's like, create your account. And then it's like your name. And he's putting it in. And then it's like, proceed to the payment. But he's like reading everything. I'm like, Dad, you're killing me. And he was asking me questions. And like, he was not understanding that he thought we would have to do it on the TV. And I'm like, no, Dad, let's just make an account. It's way easier to type here and we can just input the login information on the TV. And he was like not understanding it. I'm like, oh my God, Dad, just trust me. I've done this 100 million times. Like as you and I, as like younger people, we know how these things, like we order on Amazon. We put our information in to make an account on like so many things. Like he's quite literally just like never. So you guys, it's like Barrett Berg, and then he puts in his credit card information and we keep hitting like pay and it's doing the error. And so we finally give up, right? But what does my dad do? He's sitting next to me on the iPad. He goes in. Okay, you know, you could just close the tab, right? You just close the tab. It's gone. He goes into like, you know how it's credit card number, the expiration, the security code, and the zip code. He goes into each of them and backspaces. So he deletes all of his information that was like in the lines when he could just close it down. I'm like, Dad, you're killing me. And I didn't really say anything because I know where his brain is at. So I get it. But I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys live in a different like time period than me. And just like, I forget. And this is why you guys, they do not know, my dad and Pam, about my TikTok, about my podcast, about my Instagram. I have quite literally never brought it up to them. And you're like, what? They would never understand. This is the man who literally has never made an account, never put his credit card information. How the fuck am I going to explain TikTok to my father? I'm not going to. Of course he would get the gist, but it's not even worth my time because like, sweet Barrett, he literally went in and like deleted all of his info that was in those blanks. And you might be thinking, maybe that's smart. I don't know. Maybe I'm too frivolous with my information, but I was dead. I was absolutely dead. Okay. And then you guys, that day was again a moving day, helped them. It was great. Had like 10 pots of coffee. Amazing. Go to bed. My dad drops me off and you guys are going to shit yourselves probably because it's so not who I am. Well, actually, I've gotten a lot better with flying. Like back in the day, so I had never flown on a plane until I was in college. Okay, I flew to New York to see my roommate after our freshman year, and that was my first time. So I was under the belief system that you had to be to the airport 2 hours early because everybody in Bismarck doesn't fly. So like, and I'm sure old people in your family are like this. They like think you have to go there 2 hours early and yada, yada. And like, that's just not the case. Like I've gotten way better at getting there like maybe 30 minutes before boarding. If I know which airport I'm going out of, and now that I have TSA pre-check, like I'm really good at being there a little bit early because like the panic of being late, I can't live like that, but like not 2 hours early. Okay. Well, as you can imagine, the Bismarck Airport, they have technically 4 gates. However, they only ever use 1 and 4. They're on like the far ends. That is just how it goes. And every single time I go to the Bismarck Airport, I'm the only one in line. Also for TSA pre, like only person in line. Maybe there's like 2 people in the general boarding, but like regardless, you're going to get through in 2 seconds. So I fly out at 6:05. So boarding was at 5:35, I think. Yeah. So I told my dad we live like 7 minutes from the airport, probably so close. So, and it's Bismarck. So like there's no traffic. Again, it's not a normal place. I tell my dad, let's wake up. And as long as we leave here by 5:10, I'll be fine. So we both set our alarms for 5. I get up and you guys, boarding is at 5:30. And so I can imagine if you are a normal person, you're like, bitch, what do you mean you're getting up at 5? Like you should probably be there at 5. You board at 5:30. No, we wake up at 5. We leave by 5:10. I get there at like 5:20. And there actually was a decent line in general boarding, like maybe 8 people, but I'm TSA pre, so there's a separate line. So I just walk up. Okay. I give them my ID. I go through the thing. Of course, something gets flagged. Every motherfucking time I go to the Bismarck Airport, I get flagged for something. It's because they have nothing better to do. They only see probably 100 people in a day. So they take their job so seriously. So I have to go over. And again, I'm boarding in 15 minutes, but it's like the gate is right here. I can see it. It's so small. She pulls out all of my shit and the little crystal glassware thing. I don't know. She had to check it. She looked at it. She tries to shove the stuff back in, but my backpack is so full because all I brought is a backpack. And then now I have a puzzle, all of these things, a few books LaDonna gave me. I'm like, let me just do it. Thank you so much. Have a good day. And she was kind, actually. Usually they're such assholes. So I put my stuff in and I go sit down and now I have like, still 10, 15 minutes. But as I'm sitting there, I get a text message and I was quite literally the last row. I was 23D and this plane is like not that big. So the last row is 23 and I was like, whatever, doesn't matter. I have my backpack. I shove it under. I don't really give a fuck. Okay. And the Bismarck flights from Dallas and to Dallas, obviously, are planes that are only 2 rows on each side. Wait, am I mistaken? No, yeah. There are only 2 rows on each side. So you're either the window or the aisle and you only have one person on the side of you, if it's even full. So like, who gives a fuck? Well, I'm sitting there. It's like 5:20. I'm just sitting against the wall waiting to board. And I get a text and it says, you are now 1F. I am number 1. And at first I didn't think, oh, first class. Like I was just like, okay, first row. Because on these planes, I'm like, is first class even really a thing? Well, I get on, right? So I scanned my phone and it didn't update on my boarding pass, but it goes dink. And the girl hands me the new boarding pass and I'm 1F. I get on, you guys. It is the first row. It is first class. I don't know what happened or what I got changed. What I'm guessing happened was that nobody buys first class going from Bismarck to Dallas. Like who the fuck, number 1, has that money, but number 2, like what? So I'm guessing they just like put in people. And because I fly American a lot, I'm guessing maybe I earned the right. I don't really know. But I go and there was a man in the seat next to me. So on one side, there was only a row of 1 seats. And then on the left side, there were 2. And I was like the window facing in the first. So not only is it first class, it's the very first seat. So there's a ton of leg room. So I had to put my backpack above because obviously there wasn't a seat in front of me. But I sit down. The lady comes over and she's like, would you like something to drink? Like as I sit down, other people are still boarding. I'm like, oh my God, can I get coffee? She's like, of course. She grabs me a coffee. I'm like, oh my fucking God. Okay. So I'm like, no way. But the only problem is I didn't have my iPad because I was like obviously getting on a little frazzled. I didn't realize the situation. So I had to just put my backpack above. And the man next to me was an older like gentleman who was probably like a businessy man. And he wasn't wearing like a suit or anything, but just is what I'm guessing. It seems like he had done this a million times before. He knew the flight attendants because it's probably the same ones every single time. But anyway, she grabs me the coffee and I quickly downloaded a book on Libby on my phone so I could read. And then we take off and she immediately comes back over and she's like, would you like another cup of coffee? She brings it to me in a mug. a literal mug. I'm like, oh my God, I am the bougiest bitch that ever did live. And then she comes, ask me if I want a meal, a steak sandwich or like a croissant, like a Gouda something croissant. I think I said steak sandwich. Literally, you guys, though, it is like 7 a.m. Our flight took off at 6. I'm like, is this like hella disgusting that I'm gonna eat this steak? But I'm like, it's free. Like, she's offering it. I'm not gonna say no. If it's free, it's for me. So I take this meal. And even before that, she handed out snacks. It's a steak sandwich. Basically, it's steak on like a huge ass Hawaiian roll. You guys, I was like, I should not be eating, because obviously I ate like shit all weekend long. Just like, we were stuffing our face with snacks. We went out to eat 2 times, like just out of my norm. Anywho, I got this meal. I had my mug of coffee. It was amazing. I landed. The man next to me grabbed my backpack for me because it was like back a little ways. And I got off this plane and I got home. I had to Uber home because obviously Carter was at work. I landed at like 8:30 on Monday. Oh, and when I was in the flight, you guys, I had a text come through. I was on the Wi-Fi, but like with American, you don't get texting. Anywho, Carter passed the bar. Oh my gosh. And I don't know how that text came through, but he sent me a photo and then it said, we did it. And I texted back and I was like, oh my gosh, is it the bar? Like, did you get your results? And he was like, yes. Like, thank you so much for helping me. He sent me like this really long, sweet text. Like, he the whole time through bar, through even like the last year of law school, was always like so grateful and like reminded me all the time of just like getting the groceries and doing the laundry, and like so he doesn't have to think about other things than like studying. And of course, like, what, we are a team, we are a partnership. Like, it doesn't even cross my mind, like, of course. But oh my gosh, I bet it was just it was such a weight off of his shoulders, and all of his friends passed. So he caught up with them, and yeah, great vibes. So then I was like, we have to go out to dinner. Like, I'll buy. And he gets home and he's like, babe, I'm just exhausted. Like, I think, you know, when something happens like that, when it's been such a big thing in your life for not only the past like summer, but like all years of law school, like you look to the bar, like it's this daunting thing. And to know that you pass, like that emotional, overwhelming feeling to come over you. And then obviously he had a full day of work. So I was like, okay, well then let's order in, or I can go pick something up. And he's like, do you want pizza? And I was like, I cannot have pizza because I ate like shit, but you order a pizza. I'm just going to have yogurt or something. And so we just sat and obviously caught up about the weekend, and it was so great, and I'm so proud of him. And then, you guys, we're going home to see his family this weekend. So by the time this episode comes out, we are going to have already come and gone. We leave actually tomorrow, Thursday evening, late, so Carter can work. We leave at like 11 p.m. and then get in. San Diego is a 2-hour difference, so we'll get in at like midnight, and we'll be there Friday, Saturday, and then we come back Sunday night. So by the time this is out, we'll be back, but we're going home. And oh my gosh, you guys, Carter's mom called me yesterday, and I hadn't talked to her in a couple weeks. And I was honestly like, oh my gosh, you guys know I don't speak to my own family that often, but she calls me about once a week just to catch up. And she called me yesterday and she was like, hi, like, how was your family? How was the house? And I told her about my trip. And then we talked about Carter passing the bar, obviously. And I was like, I would love to, like, let's go out to eat this weekend to celebrate with you guys. Like, it's a big accomplishment. I want to make sure we, like, you know, you got to do things to celebrate. That way you have the memory and just to like appreciate the moments. Because if you don't, and you just live life and go on and on and on and never take a moment to like really, what's the word? Like, stop and just like take the moment in. I want to just like do that, obviously. And especially with them because they're so proud of him. So she was like, well, let me know. And Carter has some friends coming into town that we're going to see. A couple that he knows got engaged. So I think we're going to go out to eat with them. I haven't met them yet. They live in San Diego. And I think next year, you guys, they're getting married in Sicily. So I think if we get invited, which I'm not really sure if we will, but we'll go to this wedding, which I'm like, yes. But anyways, on the phone with his mom, and then caught up with her about her week. And Carter's dad is on a hunting trip. So she was at home just like having a girls' week. And then, you guys, she started crying. She was like, Brenna, I just hope you know like how much I adore you and I love you. And she like literally starts crying. She's like, I'm just so grateful that Carter has you and I just adore you and I think you're so great. Oh my gosh, it was like the sweetest thing ever. I was like, you are so sweet. Stop. I'm gonna cry. Like it was, it came out of nowhere, which she's just a very like kind, warm person, a little bit like I've seen her cry before about like certain things, you know, just like not like cry, but she's just like such an empath and just like so sweet. But it was just so nice to hear. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love you. And she's so great. But anyways, okay. Holy fuck. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. I did want to talk about porn this episode. If you logged on and you're like, bitch, you just spoke for 45 minutes about your life, I apologize. And actually, you guys, we went to bed last night and Carter always asks like what's happening on the podcast, what's going on. And a girl last week, you guys saw on my Ask Me Anything. Well, I guess not this past Friday, but the one before. Somebody asked about porn and I just did like a 1-minute little video on my thoughts. And somebody asked me to speak more about it because I forget what it's like to date somebody who watches porn. Not that I really have, but I know the ish. I know my friends who have dealt with it. I know the feelings it invokes. And I thought, what a better thing to talk about, because I brought it up to Carter because we talk about everything, you guys. And it was so nice to get his input. And it is quite literally 8 a.m. right now. I just dropped Carter off at the airport. And oh my God, bitch, I dropped him off at work. And I was like, I want to do this right now because we had this conversation last night and I don't want to forget what he said because it was so nice to hear his perspective and have a conversation with him about each side. Because at the end of the day, also with anything with your partner that you communicate about, you two have different ideas of everything. This is just like life. Conflicts in our lives mainly come from miscommunication, and not just miscommunication in the ways of like not saying things correctly. We all have different definitions of things. We all take words and they do something different to us than they do to another person. We might misconstrue. We might like somebody's body language. Like there are so many ways to misinterpret what is being said. For example, when I was just home, I went out to lunch with some family members and there were 2 people talking. And it was clear as day to me as an observer. I wasn't a part of the conversation, but one person said something, a statement, and this person to my left, okay, answered. And I could tell immediately that she did not understand what this person said. She was talking about something different. Like, I don't remember what the thing was. Well, I do, but I don't want to get into the dirty details. But I could tell immediately that she didn't really grasp what this person was saying. So she answered. And then this person was confused, but then still talking. And I was like, these 2 people are talking about 2 completely different things. And I bet both of them left that conversation and were like, that person's a dumbass. But they were not even talking about the same thing. And I saw it clear as day. And I'm like, think about how many times that happens with your partner. When you think that you're talking about the same thing or have the same idea. And this is exactly what Carter was telling me. And obviously, what I say, I don't want you guys to take the wrong way. And obviously, everybody is different. But Carter said to me, and Carter doesn't watch porn. We talked about this like on our 3rd date, I think, when we did the cards. We talked about porn and he had told me that he read an article like a long time ago, quite a few years ago, about how porn was bad for men, how it's bad for like their discipline, how it's bad for their testosterone, for their sex drive, like all of the things. And that's not really what I want to get in today. I don't need to convince you girls that like porn is bad for men. I think we know this. And I don't think also you're going to prove it to your man. They are going to have to come to that conclusion. But Carter told me like on our 3rd date, he was like, yeah, I read this article once about how it's like not good for men, obviously. And you know, he was like, I think I already knew that. Besides like the shame that you feel and just like gross, like it's not something, well, some men probably love to do it, but he was like, I read this article about how it's so bad for men's like sexual health and just like so many things. And he was like, I never did it again. Like, I just didn't want that. And he was also saying, and that is so Carter. Carter is like type A, like right and wrong. He's about the principle. Like Carter is just like a man of his word. And like, Yeah, of course. Could somebody just like say that on the first date and be full of shit? But like, no, Carter's just like so who he is and what he believes. And yeah, so that was that. And honestly, when I was younger, I feel like porn would have rubbed me the wrong way. But now, like, I just think if Carter watched it every once in a while, like, let's say I was gone on a trip and like, which I don't know why I would know, but if he had done it while I was gone, I feel like my ex-boyfriend before Carter would do that. Like, it just came up in conversation. That doesn't really bother me, because what I was going to say is Carter was saying that for men, like watching porn online, just a video, it's specifically just like a hormonal thing. It's like to get off. Okay. It has nothing to do, like, there's no connection. It's not like they're sitting there comparing you to this girl. It's like strictly for a reason. You do it, you nut, and you're done. Like, that's literally what he said. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. Well, he's telling me as a man what it is. And so, because I gave him the example of the girl who asked the question, she was like, she went to her partner and said that it doesn't make her feel good, like it makes her insecure, or whatever the thing was, and that she didn't want him to watch it. And he said that it's not a big deal and that he's going to watch it, which you guys know through and through that the thing is not the porn. It's the fact that he dismissed your feelings and said, sorry, don't give a fuck, I'm going to keep doing it. That's the problem. And like, that is not your person. Like, just hands down. And Carter obviously agreed with me. But he was saying how when you go to your boyfriend and say something like that, and guys often say like their excuse is like, every guy does it. And Carter's like, they're not wrong. 90% of men probably watch it. Like, that is true. That is factually true. Not saying that it is right. This is coming from the mouth of a man who doesn't watch it and hasn't watched it in years and knows that it's not good for men. But he's just saying, like, factually, yes. And also he's like, babe, a thing for men, like, they have probably been watching porn since high school. Like, guys start doing this, like nudie mags, like Carter was saying. He was like, when I was in middle school, like, I got the Sports Illustrated, which obviously his dad, being very religious, would always intercept it and not let him have it. But he was like, I looked forward to like the nudie mag, because obviously he was like a young middle school boy. Like, I get that. Again, they're boys. Like, that to me, I understand. And this is like another part of why it's so confusing and hard for women to understand, because us, like, I went to Vegas, okay, with my cousins, and we went to one of those male strip shows. For women, that sort of thing, like watching a man in porn, like, it doesn't do to us what it does to men, because obviously there are very nasty men in this world who go to strip clubs and get lap dances, and like, it is like something for them. For us, it's almost like a joke. You know what I mean? Like, there is no equivalent. Like, bikini models on Instagram, girls don't typically sit and like fantasize over guys or like want to stare at guys' naked bodies. Of course, you can appreciate it, but do you get what I'm saying? Like, we just don't have the same brain as men. Okay. And so Carter was just saying, like, this is something that, number one, a lot of men started watching porn in high school before they even touched a girl, which I'm not saying, again, everything that I'm saying is not an excuse. I'm just saying matter of factly. So number one, it's like so rooted in just like, they started doing it at a young age. Number two, it is so normalized amongst men. Like what he said, like 90% of men do it. Like, it's so, you know, of course, like other men are watching it. Like, it's just a part of their culture almost. Again, not saying it's right. This is coming from a man who doesn't watch it and doesn't think it's good for men, but like, that's how it starts. So it's not just simply, and I think as women, and Carter was saying this, like, we come to them, and for some girls, for whatever reason, it makes us feel insecure. And like the Instagram models, because it's like your man sitting there staring at a naked girl. Of course, I was like, Carter, if I was like, you knew I was watching every week naked men, like, you know, whatever, watching porn equivalent of like what men do, you wouldn't like that. And he was like, no, of course I wouldn't. And I'm like, that's the headspace that women are coming from. Whereas when men are having this conversation with their girlfriends, like, they don't, unless, oh, Carter made such a good point. He was like, the part where you get really fucked up, and he's like, this is where I think it's so bad. And he doesn't agree with it, but Oh my gosh, there's so many levels. He was like OnlyFans. And he was like, when a guy is paying money for a specific person, now that is like wildly more to me inappropriate than just like a porn video. Like when a guy pulls up porn, it's just like a random set of people, whatever. That's just to like get off. But he's like, it is totally fucked up to me when a guy is like paying for a specific woman, because that is like a parasocial relationship to some form. He was like, that to me is like way out of bounds. He's like, I don't think men in relationships should be watching porn, of course, but like especially OnlyFans. And I'm like, yeah, no, that is, and there are levels to it. And again, there are also men that have porn addiction. So when I say that, like men just watch porn and it doesn't mean anything, like it's a means to an end. They nut and then they're done and don't think about it again. There are men that have porn addictions, and that is a real actual issue. And they have like, they probably are on there, like, you know, thinking about God knows what. And that's like a disease almost, I would say. But what we were talking about is like when you go to your partner, okay, and if him watching porn makes you feel insecure, which I get it. I feel like when I was in college, number one, it's a hard thing to bring up when you're not really confident and what's the right word? Like now me and Carter can sit and talk about porn and it like makes me feel nothing. Like it doesn't make me feel weird or gross, but having that conversation when I was in college, it would be really awkward. I wouldn't want to bring it up. Thinking about porn, like you just have like this weird feeling. So bringing it up in general is just a hard thing to do when you feel that way. But number two, when you come to him and you talk about it, because like if I knew Carter, oh, this is what I was saying before, when I was gone on a trip, if he had watched it just to like masturbate, that wouldn't bother me like at all. Like I just, because number one, I know the mindset. I wouldn't love it, don't get me wrong, because I'm not trying to downplay your feelings, but like I don't, when we're watching TV and there's like a naked girl, like I don't feel insecure. I'm like, okay, you know, like that doesn't bother me at all. And you might not feel that way. I actually had somebody comment once and say like, they don't like that the man that they're with, their favorite show, it has a bunch of naked scenes. Like I would challenge you to look inward, because I do think it has everything to do with us, because that doesn't bother me. Maybe back in the day it would. And when you are like not deeply insecure, but you have insecurities and you're not very sure of yourself and you're not very confident, those things do rub you the wrong way, 100%. But when you come to your partner in that lens and say it makes you insecure or you feel like it's betrayal, they are then coming from a lens of like, it's just a means to an end. Like for a lot of guys, it means absolutely nothing. And again, I'm not justifying the behavior. I'm not justifying it at all, but I'm just saying the miscommunication when you are talking about one thing and they don't see it that way at all. There's a lot of confusion and a lot of like, you guys know through and through, I don't agree with a man putting your feelings down. And me and Carter talked about this and he agrees 100%. He's like, these people are just with the wrong people. Because if I were to come to Carter about anything, right? I'm talking anything and said, you're doing this and it hurts my feeling, he would stop doing the thing. Like that is just a matter of fact. And he said so himself. So like your person would never downplay, but to give them the benefit of the doubt, like it is kind of harmless. It's not completely harmless because it hurts your feelings, but like in their minds, like when they just go on and do the thing and get off, like I think for a lot of men, that's all it is. Do I still think it's not good? Obviously. And again, you're talking to two people who don't believe in it, but I'm just saying, so when a guy comes and is like, everybody does it and like, it's no big deal, to them, it really is. So I don't think they're always trying to hurt your feelings. And like, again, I'm not justifying it, but I think it's good to know that that is where they're coming from, because if not, you know, he's sitting there and he's saying that, which again, I think it would end up being, if that was your person, more of a conversation. Like he would try and help you understand that. But as women, and again, I need to talk more about like us taking accountability. Sometimes we just like go crazy and we say things and we feel hurt, even though sometimes it's an internal thing. Sometimes maybe it's not. But my thoughts on porn also are just like, in a relationship. Oh, and this is where I also want us girls to take accountability. If you are in a relationship and you do not have sex with your partner. Let's say that you are always tired. And again, I get it. And especially if you have kids and life happens, I don't want anybody to take this wrong way, but I do strongly believe that you should be having sex with your partner frequently. Okay. And that looks different. Maybe that's once a week for people. That's once every 2 weeks. Again, like whatever that is for you, ideally, the more, the better. I think sex just makes you connected to your partner. Like it helps both of you. It makes you feel good. Like it can only help your connection. And as much as at the end of the day, sometimes I'm tired and maybe don't want to do it in the moment, every single time we have sex, like I just feel so much stronger to Carter and it helps our relationship. And that is just a fact. That is just a fact. So if you are in a relationship and you are not having sex with your partner because you're constantly tired and taking care of things, which again, I'm never saying that like, well, I guess my beliefs are my beliefs. I think you should be having sex with your partner no matter how tired. And like, if you just don't want to because the sex isn't good, then you should figure that out. Like, I don't want to hear excuses because I get it. Like, life happens, but I think it is so important in a relationship. So if now your partner is outsourcing and watching porn and you're telling him to stop, but you're also not, and I hate to say like giving him sex, but you're not having sex with him, what is he supposed to do? Like men need to get off and like, you know what I mean? And again, I'm not justifying it. I hope you guys will understand what I'm coming for, where I'm coming from. But I want you guys to like really deeply like also look inward, because like if you're sitting there telling him to stop, but you're also not having sex with him, he's between a rock and a hard place, because you should be having sex. And like, this is also my problem. And Carter made this point too. Like single men, I don't give a fuck what they're doing if they're watching porn. Like, again, when it's like this mindless thing, I get it. Like masturbation is inherently good if it's not like excessive, you know, but it's also like why we have a lot of men who are fucking crazy in the head and why they're not going out and seeking partners. Like men are more sexless than I think they have ever been, because they can hop online and go watch porn and jack off. And it's like essentially not that different. I mean, it's obviously very different from sex, but they are no longer seeking out women because they don't have to. And I think that's bad for men too. And so it's such a complex conversation and there's a lot of different areas. And I don't know why I'm talking about single men, but I think, you know, a lot of guys do it when they're single. And again, doesn't really bother me personally. I think they'd be better without it and that's the other thing, and why I don't agree with men doing it in a relationship. If you are having sex with your partner and he's also watching porn, or like he is watching porn and not having sex with you, like that is a major issue. Like he should be getting that from you. And that's why I think it's weird for a man to be watching it in a relationship anyways. Now, the example that I said, if you're not having sex with him, I can understand why he's doing it. And I do think that's unfair. Like I could understand why he's doing that, but it just has to go on with conversation. Like it just needs to be a talking point, but you also need to, number one, reel in like where you're coming from and where all of your feelings come from, and also understand his lens and like what is the problem. Like I do not agree with it. You guys know that, but I think it is a complex issue. And again, it's something that they've been doing for a really long time, not justifying it, but like, just to give you an understanding, like if you were a girl and you'd been doing something since high school, like it could also be hard for a man to stop. And like if he doesn't really think about it ever, it's like a mindless thing that he does and it doesn't seem harmful to him, he doesn't understand that it hurts you, or like can understand why it would hurt you. I would challenge you to bring up the conversation. Like, how would you feel if I was sitting here watching naked women, or on my Instagram, or naked men, or if on my Instagram feed I had like all these naked men that I was like looking at? And if he tells you that it's normal and it's no big deal without trying to like deeply understand your feelings, that is a problem. Like, I don't think if he says that, you should just one and done. I think you should try and get to the bottom of that. But like understanding both sides and understanding when you're having this conversation that you could be talking about two different things while you think you're talking about the same thing, that could be a podcast episode in and of itself. But I overall don't agree with it. I think it just also shows a man who lacks discipline, self-control, and like he should be seeking that from you. But then you also need to be having sex with your partner. And I think you should be. I think it's good for your relationship. And again, if like you've had the worst day of your life, no, I'm not saying like have sex with your partner just to please him. Like I want you to be there. But also if you're not enjoying the sex, like you need to figure that out. Like there are so many parts of this conversation. It just depends on where you're at. If you're a younger girl and like your partner watching porn makes you insecure, I get it. I've been there. I understand. Like I remember back in college, like my boyfriend, like, no, I didn't love it. Of course I didn't. And he shouldn't have been watching it. But you're scared to have those conversations. But I think you should have those conversations. Like bring it up. It's going to be awkward, but you're going to get better at having these conversations and it's going to get easier to talk about. But don't sit and hide your feelings about it and be hurt. Okay, but also understand that like for a man, sometimes it is just like mindless. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying he should be doing it, but to understand where he's coming from. Does that make sense? Those are most of my thoughts. We can obviously continue this conversation, but I wanted to bring it up because I forget that it's a common thing. And if your, partner has like a porn addiction, they need to like really seek therapy. And that's like something that you're not going to be able to help them with. And again, the Instagram models, like when they tell you like that's a you problem, like whatever, that person is just not for you. And Carter said that. And he was like, for these girls that are with men that are like saying things like this and he just like doesn't give a fuck and is doing what he's doing, like that's just not their person and they're just gonna have to get through that and know that that's not the love of their life and like whatever. These are all lessons that we learn. I learned this at one point, just like I'm telling you, you kind of have to go through it and again, have these conversations. And because in the past I had conversations like this with previous partners, now I'm here today with Carter, nothing is off limits. Like we can sit here with no weirdness at all. Okay. And talk about it. So I got here because I was in your position. So I'm saying this and I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings. You're like, but Brent, I'm still, I'm not an insecure person, but I think there are obviously levels to it. And it's normal to like feel insecure and like it's awkward and like knowing that your partner is looking at naked women by choice, like yeah, that would make nobody feel good. But I think understanding where they're coming from and just like the background of it and having the conversation, because he might not even think twice about it and how it would make you feel and like why it would make you feel anything. They just might not understand. And sometimes we come from like, I saw online that you should not be watching porn and here's an article on why it's bad for you. Like we come in so hot and heavy and like they need to get there and they need to like do that exploring of information on their own or like want to do that. Does that make sense? So I think that starts with a conversation and maybe they have no idea that it is harmful for them or that you guys could be having more sex if he wouldn't masturbate. Because obviously if he masturbates, like he doesn't need to have sex that day. And it's like, babe, like we could be doing more, but like you do this thing, like something he could have even not thought of. So all of that to say, have the conversation. It might be awkward. You might be emotional. That's normal. Like I used to be so bad at communicating. I just like didn't know how to express myself. I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't want it to end in a breakup. But like at the end of the day, you cannot do the wrong thing with the right person. You bringing up your feelings will never ruin a real connection. Like you have to have these conversations. If it ends in a breakup because you brought up this thing that bothers you, that is just not your person. But have the conversation and know that it'll get easier and it's better for you guys to talk about it. Like me and Carter went to bed and I was like, I loved talking about this with you. Number one, to get your perspective and also to help me with my podcast. But I just learned so much about Carter as an individual and just like, I don't know, it helps me then have a conversation about other things later. Like the more hard, awkward, weird conversations we have, it only makes them easier when other things come up. So that is my thought on that. Those are my thoughts on that. I hope you guys have the best week. Thank you guys for listening. And I'm open to feedback and like whatever you guys want to say, let me know your situation and we can talk about it more. But I hope that was helpful and I just love you guys. I hope you have the best week and I will see you guys next Monday. Okay, bye guys.